The unique thing about Pokemon SP is that all of them are basic Pokemon that can immediately be put into play. This has been repeated a lot ever since, with Pokemon EX in Black and White and Pokemon V in Sword and Shield, but SP was the first to do it. In addition to that, a lot of the SP-specific support cards were printed to make this one of the most successful archetypes when it comes to competitive play. So in this video, we'll be looking at the best of that bunch. And at number 10, we have Bronzong G. This card was one of the key aspects that helped SP to become a powerful toolbox-style deck that could make use of a large variety of attackers, while being able to easily pivot between them to always be able to provide the correct responses to the given situation. How did it do that exactly? Bronzong G has a Pokepower called Galactic Switch that allows the player to move an energy card attached to one of your Pokemon SP to another Pokemon for the small price of 2 damage counters that would be placed on Bronzong G, which didn't really matter with cards like Poketurn and Bronzong G's bulky HP. Bronzong was part of the first batch of SP cards that featured a large number of Pokemon and trainers that remain core aspects of an archetype that would use these cards. This card isn't higher on the list because most people won't immediately associate Bronzong G with being influential or iconic for the format that it had been part of, but it can be said that it deserves an inclusion in many decks and was a key part of SP's success. And at number 9, we have Ampipom G, which might not be a card that many associate with being powerful, but back in the day it had many uses and could even win games by itself. Its main use was the use of Snap Attack, which allowed you to quickly deal significant damage to Pokemon without any energy attached to them. Ampipom G was used to move an energy on the defending active Pokemon to another Pokemon on your opponent's board with its Tailcoat attack that helped fuel the condition for Snap Attack as well. This was mainly useful to pick up easy KOs on frequently used support Pokemon like Azlif, Uxie, Mesprit, and Claydol, and many others because they had low HP. You could use Crobat G for massive extra damage, which we'll talk about a bit later on. Picking up these unevolved basic Pokemon was crucial to disrupt your opponent's setup. The way that the TCG rules worked back in the day even allowed you to knock out your opponent's Pokemon before they even got to draw a card, as you were allowed to attack on your first turn, even when going first. One of the most prominent uses and a key part in later SP mirror matches was Ampipom G's ability to knock out opposing Garchomp C Lv that used Dragon Rush by attaching an energy gain and a double colorless energy, which they would have to discard after, leaving Garchomp C with 0 energies and a 2x weakness to Ampipom G's Snap Attack. And at number 8, we have Dragonite FB, a card that at first was very underrated compared to most of the other SP Pokemon that made this list. Being able to hit for 80 against other SP Pokemon with its attack Mach Blow meant it could take out almost every regular SP basic that was played, and with some help from Crobat G, none of them were out of range. Being a colorless type was both a blessing and a curse at the same time, as it could take out Garchomp C Lv, but in return would also be dealt with by Garchomp C's Earthquake due to the colorless weakness that it brought with it. Giant Tail was only really used in desperate situations, but could still offer a viable option to close out games if everything else would fail. While every other entry on this list immediately got included in archetype, it took some time for Dragonite FB to become an established part of SP strategies, but once it did, it was a major threat, even being a contributor to a World Championship win in 2010. Because of how late Dragonite FB's potential in the mirror was discovered, this card doesn't rank as high in this list despite its clear use in the mirror match. And at number 7, we have a bit of a controversial one, as Palkia G and Palkia G Lv aren't immediately what comes to mind when people think about dominant cards in the SP format, mainly because during most of the SP formats, they were already way past their prime. But when you consider its domination during the first year after its release, your mind will most likely change, even if Palkia G wasn't as prevalent anymore towards the end of SP. When the first SP cards were released in Platinum, Dialga G and Palkia G were the flagship attackers of the archetype, and they started dominating events from the get-go. Palkia G's Lv main use was its Pokepower Lost Cyclone, which forced both players to put Pokemon into the Lost Zone until they would each have 3 bench Pokemon remaining. Once a card hits the Lost Zone, it's removed from play and can't be used for the remainder of the game. This was a useful tool to limit your opponent's options in play, or get rid of your own cards that you didn't have any use for anymore. Using this in combination with its attack Hydro Shot meant that you can get your opponent to just 2 bench Pokemon in one turn, crippling their setup. Palkia G's Pearl Breath helped to set up damage on your opponent's bench for easier knockouts at later points in the game. Unfortunately for Palkia G, the next set already brought a more powerful attacker in Luxray GL Lv. Infernape 4 Lv was the second big attacker for Rising Rival, but was easily checked by Palkia G. Palkia G Lv still found some success during the 2009 Worlds format, with its highest placement being a top 8 in the 2017 World Championship, outperforming Luxray GL and Infernape 4 deck. Luxray GL might have been an issue for Palkia G, but it also acted as a valuable ally, as the combination of these two was able to be placed in the top 16 of the 2009 World Championships multiple times. Palkia G remained relevant until the release of Supreme Victors in late 2009, where the most known and most powerful version of the SP archetype finally came together. And at number 6, we have another utility card. Lucario GL's Pokebody Boundary Aura changed the weaknesses of all Pokemon in play to ×2, something that has become the normal Pokemon TCG ever since Heart Gold and Soul Silver, but at the time was exclusive to SP Pokemon. This was meant to balance them in comparison to regular Pokemon. Lucario GL, however, helped to mitigate the weakness by forcing it onto your opponent, which became especially successful considering the number of different types that the archetype could use to attack with. This card made dealing with a lot of top matchups at the time much easier because it transformed the negligible plus 30 weakness into a much more manageable and relevant ×2. Lucario GL became a staple in almost all SP decks because of how relevant gaining advantage was in this format where every game was razor thin. And at number 5, we have Blaziken FB. This card was a hard-hitting powerhouse that also provided some utility when used correctly. Blaziken's most used attack was Luring Flame, which would switch the defending Pokemon with one of your opponent's bench and leave it burn. Burn at the time was a permanent status condition that could only be removed by leaving the active spot. In between turns, the players whose Pokemon is afflicted by burn would flip a coin, and if tails, they would take 20 damage. If heads, nothing. Luring Flame was a valuable attack against bench sitters like Claydol and Vileplume that could be pulled to either be knocked out, or, depending on the amount of retreat and switch options your opponent had, to stick something in the active spot while using Garchomp C Lv's Dragon Rush attack to do 80 damage over and over, clean up your opponent's bench Pokemon while they're left helpless in the active spot. Blaziken FB Lv's attack Jet Shoot was also very capable of providing cleanup duty by itself, being able to deal 80 damage for just 2 energies. One if you were factoring in energy gain. Its Pokebody Burning Spirit, which added an extra 40 damage to Pokemon afflicted by the burn condition, could even help to take out high HP threats. The strategy was as follows: pull them up with Luring Flame, leave them burned, and attack them on the following turn. All of these things made Blaziken both a very good attacker, but also a valuable tech for SP decks. And at number 4, we have Dialga G. Dialga G and Dialga G Lv have stood the test of time. Dialga G was there at the very beginning of the earliest SP builds primarily as a tool to slow down your opponent by not allowing them to play any items or stadiums with the Deafen attack, and eventually finished them with Dialga G's second strike. Eventually it became an important ally against Vileplume by blocking its Allergy Flower Pokebody that would prevent both players from playing any item cards from their hand, with Dialga G Lv's own Pokebody, Time Crystal, towards the end of its lifetime. Compared to most other cards on this list, or even SP cards in general, Dialga G was a much slower card and more oriented towards making your opponent's life hard by being hard to knock out itself. Late game Dialga G decks boards consisted of one huge Dialga with multiple special metal energies attached, reducing any damage done to it by 10 for each of them, and would use the combination of Poketurn and Garchomp C Lv's Healing Breath Pokepower to heal once it would get in range of being knocked down. While this archetype was not the most popular among SP decks, it was played by top players at the time who favored this build more than others. And at number 3, we have Garchomp C Lv, a card you've heard about many times before in this video already. This card is widely considered the best attacker of the deck, and it's not difficult to understand why. Dragon Rush allowed you to, at the cost of discarding 2 energy cards, deal 80 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon, which during that time would immediately take care of most basic and stage 1 Pokemon, allowing you to either disrupt your opponent's setup by taking out their consistency Pokemon, or even the basics or stage 1s of the main attacker itself. And if this wasn't already enough during the release of Supreme Victors, Garchomp C received an immense buff by the release of Double Colorless Energy in Heart Gold and Soul Silver, to allow it to attack for just 1 Double Colorless Energy and 1 energy gain. On top of that, Garchomp C Lv's Healing Breath Pokepower would create nightmares for any deck that wasn't able to take out your SP Pokemon in one hit because it would heal your board, or to simply get more uses out of your Bronzong G after it had already accumulated a lot of damage counters on it. These numerous uses, as well as Garchomp C Lv's colorless typing and free retreat, made this the most threatening and versatile attacker in the entire SP engine. And at number 2, we have Crobat G. Players that have played the Pokemon TCG in the last 2 years know how good Zigzagoon's Headbutt Tantrum from Sword and Shield is, in combination with Scoop Up Net, and Crobat G fulfills the same purpose, helping you pick up knockouts by placing extra damage counters with its Flash Bite Pokepower. Flash Bite would place 1 damage counter on your opponent's side of the board in any way you like when Crobat G enters play. This ability, paired with Poketurn, would allow players to use Crobat G multiple times in one game to set up perfect numbers where they could. Flash Bite was one of the best Pokepowers during the 2009 until 2011 formats, helping players hit the correct amount of damage to take important KOs in some matchups. This went so far that even decks that had nothing to do with SP would splash in a couple of Cyrus's Conspiracy, Poketurns, and Crobat G simply to get the extra damage advantage. In SP decks, Crobat G would also get some additional use in being able to use his attack against tanky threats like Donphan Prime that the deck would otherwise struggle with. Fitting the correct energy wasn't even an issue, as most SP decks already played Psychic Energies for promo Toxicrow G, which was a popular counter against Luxray GL Lv. Now, gusting has been a major part of the last 10 plus years in the Pokemon TCG. But before we had cards like Boss's Orders, Cross Switcher, Pokemon Catcher, Lycanroc GX, or even Umbreon VMAX, there was Luxray GL Lv. With that being said, in first place, we have not only the best SP card, but also one of the best cards during its time. Maybe even all time. Luxray GL Lv. This card's bright look allows you to, upon evolving your Luxray GL, switch one of your opponent's Pokemon with their active Pokemon. This, in combination with Poketurn, multiple Luxrays, and Aaron's collection, would theoretically allow you to take each of your prize cards by pulling up some low HP basic Pokemon to then knock it out with Flash Impact or Trash Bolt. But you didn't even have to use Luxray GL itself to take out these Pokemon, or even any SP Pokemon for that matter, which is why Luxray GL Lv found its way into many decks outside the SP archetype. Much like Crobat G, players would use more than 10 slots in their deck just to fit their package of Cyrus Conspiracy, Poketurn, Luxray GL Lv, and SP Radar, just to get access to the ability of bringing up whatever Pokemon you wanted on any given turn. This strategy was mainly used by a deck that would sometimes struggle with dealing enough damage to take out a deck's main attacker. So Luxray GL Lv was the perfect addition to close out games. Some of the most popular users are Jumpluff from the Heart Gold and Soul Silver base set and Gyarados from the Stormfront expansion. Luxray GL Lv doesn't even need a discussion to determine if it was one of the best cards in the history of the game, winning every World Championship that it was legal in from 2009 to 2010, even covering both its roles as attacking the 2009 World Championships winning deck, and being used as one of the main attackers in a deck that combined the power of Luxray GL Lv and Garchomp C Lv, two cards that you're probably familiar with by now, and that both receive reprints in Pokemon's iconic 25th anniversary set, Celebrations, as a homage to their legacy. With all of these powerful cards in mind, and many more that help the archetype to accumulate formidable strength with fully assembled, it's no surprise that SP decks dominated the games as long as they were around. Alright, and if you think we missed any other important SP cards, or have any ideas for future top 10s just like this one, please let us know down in the comments below.